we interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you this important message.
What is happening at Red Bull Racing? What is happening at Red Bull Racing? What is happening at Red Bull Racing?
The only thing I have to start is because what is happening at Red Bull Racing? Oh,
Cheers to that.
cheers! I'm
You,
gonna need this.
If you didn't quite catch that, again, the handiwork, absolutely applause to Reese for putting that little clip together. The music actually says, "What the hell is up at Red Bull Racing?" over and over and over again, and it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
To be fair, that isn't music generated. That's actually just the voice inside my head from the last week because I've been trying to figure out what the hell is happening at Red Bull Racing. And we spoke about it, and we sort of thought this would be where it was going, but never in my wildest dreams did I think that Lawson was going to be the first driver of 2025 to be kicked from a seat.
Welcome, of course, everybody, to The Top Step with Reese and Stu. We've given you a pretty easy precursor to what's going on in the show tonight as we warm up for the Yuki Tsunoda show in Japan. But Red Bull Racing have basically imploded. And another one of our tips you've quite correctly pointed out we got absolutely wrong. Yours is a long way wrong because he's currently fifth in the championship or something, but a long way wrong. But equally mine incorrect as well, as Liam Lawson copped the axe. I mean, is it an axe? Is it? It's a sidestep.
It's not.
Well, he's not out of Formula One, so it's not an axe.
No, I understand, but he still did lose his Red Bull seat, and he lost his seat. And I know that he's still in Formula One, which is more questions than that. Leaves me asking more questions than there is answers. But you are right, he didn't get axed, but he has lost his seat at Red Bull.
So replaced by Yuki Tsunoda for the Japanese Grand Prix, and depending upon how you read the media, will not be changed again now before season's end. Now, I messaged you when that came out, and I said the season ends probably in about 2 or 3 races when there is no chance of them winning the Constructors' title whatsoever. So is that the point at which Yuki loses the seat and they make the decision to bring in Daniel?
Yes, he definitely is still the front runner in my mind. But we know, and the Lawson move again is another one where the contract that Red Bull make, it means absolutely nothing because they can say all they want, but they've signed Yuki. They signed Yuki. My brain. They signed Perez. They extended his contract, and they didn't extend his contract. So we said it before in previous episodes. Their contracts are definitely done with pencil or on water crackers. I don't know, but they don't hold up or stand up anywhere.
So obviously, looking into this, let's get some analysis going around what we think is going to happen with the Yuki situation. So we've got a driver who got to spend some time in the car. I think we saw correctly today in the right car, who said it's not as difficult to drive as he thought it would be. Is it gusto over glory? He's expecting to try and finish on the podium. And I think that looking back at our preseason chat about Yuki and some of the I'm going to use my front tyres, whether you like it or not, kind of conversation.
Even from the last race.
Do you think that he may be building his own shotgun in that, or maybe, building a plank for himself to walk down with the way he's talking?
Yes, and I thought that he may have learnt from what Lawson was saying last year, and what he was talking about Ricciardo, all those sort of things. I thought that he may have learnt that you don't talk until you can actually show that you can walk, especially in that car.
It was one of the things that was ingrained in me when I was playing sport by my dad, who always said, "Don't tell everybody what you're going to do. Just go and do it, and then let them talk to you about it afterwards." And I would think, given what's happened with Lawson, with the amount of extra experience that Yuki's going into this with, that not only is the expectation, obviously, that he doesn't finish last, but now he's built it up that he can drive the car and he's going to outperform Sergio in it. And all of the predecessors that have attempted to drive that car, including probably by his own suggestion, surpassing Danny Rick, who was the last driver to beat Max in a Red Bull.
Yep. I think this stems back to what we were saying in terms of he doesn't have the maturity and the head that he needed for this team, because now he's had all this media attention. It's blown up again. And he's absolutely bit of wood by bit of wood. He's building his plank. So I am going to hold judgment until we've got the Japanese Grand Prix this weekend, and I am going to hold my full judgment towards that, because he may surprise us, but I'm leaning towards no.
I put this little doozy together today when I heard about this. This is how I think he's approaching the Japanese Grand Prix. So he is piling his way through downtown Tokyo, and in the bottom there's all of the old deadwood Red Bull drivers, and you can just see that I did pop Max into a Mercedes on his way out, leaving the team, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But I feel like that's how he's approaching the Grand Prix, and I think that it's probably similar to where he should be is probably similar to this, where he's just jumped into the speed racer and is headed on his way. But there is always this one that I came up with too, which was an interesting promotional opportunity for them. Miami, of course, a lot later in the calendar, but this is what we could be looking at for the rest of the season.
If he is still in the seat.
If he is still in the seat. So, look, there's obviously a lot to come with that, and we'll see what happens out of it. But I think that he probably now needs to stop talking. We're, 48 hours away local time from, Japan's only an hour difference anyway, but we're now 48 hours away from the Grand Prix, from the first test sessions starting, and we've got to remember that Liam Lawson as well is familiar with that track, and you dropped a nice, interesting piece of information on me today about how the race might be. Yes,
it might be wet. So, looking into, I think practice was 10% chance of rain. Quali was 20% chance of rain, and then the race was over 50% chance of rain. And we know historically Japan can be a wet race.
It's not rain that happens there, it's tsunami.
I was going to say monsoon.
Yeah,
tsunami.
monsoonal. Yeah. I mean, even going back, and not that weather changes based on the decades, or it does for some people apparently, but
my tinfoil hat again?
Well, that's probably not where we're at. We'll get Adam Bant on a little later. No, we won't. Yeah. I remember, I think it was late 80s, maybe early 90s, maybe 89, 90, 91, something like that. There was a race that didn't start until some stupid time in the day because of how much rain there was there. Like it was 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and they were talking about cancelling it because there wasn't enough time. Or maybe it did get cancelled. I didn't refresh my memory, but
even in more modern day Formula One, within the last 10 years, it's happened multiple times where races start late, red flags in the race, like all that sort of stuff because of the weather conditions. So.
Is that why they moved it forward? Because, of course, it used to be the last race of the season. So,
if you remember, and then they moved it again, and I think it was around our Bathurst. So it was around that sort of September, October.
Yes, you're correct.
That same thing. It was also rain, and I don't know if you remember the golden year where we got to watch.
Just reminded me of the best Bathurst weekend of my life.
So we got to watch Supercar Bathurst that was not interrupted by Formula One because of the red flag. And then as Supercar Bathurst finished, we got to watch the Japanese Grand Prix.
And then straight after that was MotoGP.
Yeah, it was.
So we literally had like a motorsport festival on a Sunday night and then had to go to work the next day.
I was going to say, then Monday sucked.
But it always sucks after Bathurst. Well, Bathurst as it was. Now it doesn't because Bathurst isn't that interesting. Anyway, we're changing topics, but yeah, that Japan.
So
I do remember that.
And it doesn't matter what time of year. When it's wet, it's wet.
Oh, you must work for Ferrari. When it's wet, it's wet.
Must be the water.
Wow, you
Is
are
that-
you must be
is
an
that-
engineer.
Is that why his car was underweight? Because there wasn't enough water in his seat at the last race?
Because they hadn't filled the cockpit, you reckon?
Didn't put any water in the seat.
Oh, that must
Yeah.
be it. But yeah, no, so expecting a wet race in Japan at this stage, or 50-50. But I mean, Australia was building up as about 50% early in the week, and then it got to 80%. And of course, we all know what happened there. So,
And whilst my Formula One predictions have been how you going, my weather predictions so far have been pretty good. So
spot on. Absolutely spot on. So that's going to add an interesting twist to the weekend in a car that is by design very pointy. And of course, the other interesting thing that we need to see at play here, there's two that I'm interested in. I was a big advocate for Hadjar, if you remember, at the start of in the preseason show. And said that he was going to beat Yuki, and I still think he would have had Yuki stayed in that seat. But Liam and Hadjar in familiar equipment. Look, there's no question Liam can drive,
not at all.
none whatsoever. So him versus Hadjar, they're going to be, and even not versus, but together, they're going to put in a really strong performance if they remain that way for the rest of the year in the team's championship too.
Yeah, absolutely. However, I do want to go back to our very first episode. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. We spoke about team battles. Now, if we think about the Hadjar Sonoda, there was a clear 1-2. Hadjar gave him a toe into Q3, that sort of stuff. What happens now when Hadjar's been in the seat from the start of the year and is obviously still the rookie, but Lawson's been put back into the seat and technically still a rookie? What happens in that driver dynamic where we originally were seeing Hadjar helping and assisting and doing all those sort of things, and I thought that was going to continue happening into the year, which would be great for racing bulls. What happens now when they're fighting each other?
I think it's an even field. I mean, I like what the team boss from Racing Bulls came out and said, which is that now they've got a really strong driver lineup. And
they didn't when the driver that went to Red Bull was there. But,
they didn't. So, but now they've got a really strong driver lineup. So it's probably not too dissimilar in a lot of respects to what McLaren's going through, where there's going to ostensibly be no favoured driver. I think they'll want to try and give Lamb a pick me up. To get his confidence back. Yeah, to get his confidence back. Yeah. But equally, Hadjar's a talent of the future. I guess obviously arguably so is Liam. And I wanted to flip it back on you and say, is this looking again as I think I hadn't thought before when we started this that at almost every episode we would talk about the next year's racing. But so far we haven't escaped it, and I'm going to make sure that we don't this time. Is this so Max goes to Mercedes? Who replaces him, if anyone? And looking at it further down the track, is this the future driver lineup? Because obviously Yuki's not young in terms of driving age and track or Formula One experience. Is this the future Red Bull lineup?
I had not even thought that. But no, you're making very, very good points there. And you could well and truly be onto something. Whether it's next year, I don't see that. But who else would they put in there when Max?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, so you think about it in terms of football teams, and in football, whether it's AFL or Premier League or whatever, the teams go through rebuilds. Now, Max leaves. They've designed a car solely around him, and they then have to start with this fresh sheet of paper in 2026. It's actually a really good break for mine. I think that there's a lot of good reason for them to cut it off, kind of like when Vettel left, to cut it off and say, cool, 2026, brand new car. If we get it wrong and the car's crap, but we've got new drivers in, then we sort of get a little bit of a grace period.
Yeah.
If we're crap with Max, he'll leave, and then we've got no one anyway. So let's cut it clean and say Max mid-season is his cutoff, I think we were saying, for being able to escape Red Bull next year and break his contract, people say it's crazy to say let a 4-time world champion go. And Max is an unbelievable driver, but the car's not what it was 4 years ago. It's not even what it was 2 years ago. And they don't have a second driver that can perform in the car.
No. Absolutely. And seeing him like bonding with the rookies and things like that, I always sort of thought going into next year, if he gets to halfway through the season, he goes, no, the car's crap. We're not heading in the direction that we need to be heading into. Those Aston Martin rumors sort of pop back up where Newey is, where the car development is going to be, but not having a good second driver for the World Championship and the Constructors' Championship, depending on who Aston Martin partners him with, could be a massive thing. But in saying that again, Lance Stroll has completely flipped everything I thought about him, and he's performing better this year. I know we're only 2 races in than I thought he would be. I thought he would be
everything.
No, okay. Well,
he hasn't flipped everything. The only thing he hasn't flipped is the car.
It's the car. But see, that's it. He's finished 2 races in the points, and that is actually flipping everything that I expected from him.
No, look, he is outperforming, but he's had some luck as well. So let's see what happens when we don't lose 5 or 6 cars, which attrition nowadays is unusual, and the wet weather was there to help him out. So, but, he finished, the others didn't.
But against my prior judgment, Kimi Antonelli, going to be phenomenal future driver, and Max partnering with Kimi Antonelli, that's a winning combination.
Can you honestly, though, imagine Max working...
I know exactly where you're going.
Can you imagine Max working at Mercedes with the way he is and the way Toto is? Can you imagine them forming a productive partnership?
It'll be one of 2 things. It will go absolutely horrible wrong, or they will do mass world domination.
So I want to use what you've said just a second ago as a segue into the next subject. We'll come back to Red Bull when we get into our predictions and stuff for the race. So today or yesterday, I heard that our money man, the owner, Daddy Stroll, has tried to start dishing out some cash to complete the acquisition of Aston Martin Formula One. In case you hadn't noticed, I had some fun on ChatGPT today. It was really, really good. So this is Daddy and Veruca Stroll, as it's titled. So that's old mate out in the background there, dressed up as Veruca Salt, screaming because he wants Daddy to own Aston Martin outright. Now, let's assume he does own Aston Martin outright, and let's play out a little bit of the commercial reality behind that. So, at the moment, he does not own 100% of Aston Martin. I'm going to be mean and say that the other owners of Aston Martin probably don't want his son there. And the other owners of Aston Martin probably don't want to drop $1 billion to get Max Verstappen into the team. So, you've invested however much money Daddy Stroll has invested into getting Aston Martin to where it is, and it's only going to cost you another $50 million to own the whole thing outright. You would be crazy, and clearly I'm not as successful as he is, but you would be crazy not to put that money in and have total control.
And that's money that he'd have in his ashtray in his brand new Aston
That's
Martin.
a rounding error.
Yeah.
It's a rounding error. So where he's got it from? He's got the money from the fact he hasn't had to fix Lance's car twice so far this season. He's already saved himself a cool 50 mil.
Yeah, except Fernando's car has done it. Fernando's cars need fixing this year, so
yeah. But Fernando brings all the cool girls to the yard,
but that's
it. He doesn't need to worry about that.
He left his milk sheds out, and they were.
So, but thinking about it that way, you then go, well, and we've spoken about it before at length, that going to Aston Martin, for if it is $1 billion, it would be ridiculous. But let's just say he signs a 10-year deal to go to Aston Martin Verstappen, and 2 or 3 years of it is in Formula One, and he's also allowed to help them run their GT program and drive in their GT program. Now, we spoke about it again last episode, and this is where all the ducks are lining up. And we have predicted the future already, only 5 episodes in. So
you can call us the new Simpsons.
This is exactly right. This is where it's going to go. But Max has also just invested in drivers for an Aston Martin in a GT3 program. So you can see here, tinfoil hat, all the stuff lining up, that this makes much more sense for Max to cut it irrespective of where the car's performing at the spring break or summer break, and do the deal with Aston Martin, because the money's not the thing for him. It's the opportunity, which is GT3. So he gets out of Formula One. He already said he's not interested in Formula One forever. He'll get an awesome car for a couple of years because he gets to work again with Newey. And whether it's Alonso that's his teammate or he's teaching Veruca to drive, it really doesn't matter to him because he'll still be out in front no matter what they're doing, similar to what he's doing at Red Bull.
So more ducks in a row now as well, just remembering this. Max has come out and also said that he's not interested in rebuilding a team and doing all that sort of stuff again if it means spending time away from his family. He's obviously got a child on the way, and he's got P.
Born?
No, I don't believe, not yet.
Well, I thought maybe he was kissing a baby's head.
Oh, maybe I'll...
Allow me to check. Please continue.
And then they've got P as well. So if he signs a deal with Aston Martin, say he drives with Aston Martin for 2 years, but then goes into the GT program, and that gives him the freedom to race 4 or 5 times a year, but building the team and everything like that from home, doing his sim racing stuff from home, doing all that sort of thing, and spending more time with the family, that also completely aligns with everything, all he was saying he wants to do. So he's not traveling with the Formula One circus for another 10 years. He's doing it for 2 years, and then he's doing the GT driving, racing, building the team, all that sort of stuff. And he might not even be in the car. He might just be building the team and doing that sort of thing. So he's doing, or he might do 4 or 5 enduros or whatever it is a year. But that also lines up with what he's saying in terms of what he wants for his future.
Due this month.
Oh, yeah, okay, cool.
And yeah, that all makes complete sense as well. So, I mean, watch this space. It was a little bit of a slow news week in the Formula One paddock, just with obviously the Red Bull driver change and stuff. There wasn't as much extra stuff for us to cover.
You wouldn't think it was, though, but there was about 500 different memes saying the same thing. So there was only one news item, but everyone covered it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. So this makes this weekend, not that it wasn't already going to be really important. There is obviously the rumours swirling around about team orders at McLaren at the moment, particularly with Oscar getting the points tally that he did last round at China. So if they're in that situation again and there's no car problems, how do you see this playing out for them?
I think that they have to back the pole sitter, that whoever qualifies higher. That's where I think McLaren's at. I think it's going to be I think if Lando takes out quality and starts on pole, then it's going to be Lando weekend. I think if Oscar takes out pole, it's going to be an Oscar weekend, because I think it's the only way they can do it.
I think the concern that I have, well, not the concern that I have, is if we cast our mind back to the second most successful Australian of recent time, which was Mark Webber. Actually, it might have been more successful than Danny Rick, but that doesn't matter. He, of course, is Oscar's agent.
Agent, yep.
So he also raced in a team where he did not get preferential treatment and therefore did not have the best opportunity to win a Formula One world title when he was at Red Bull with a German brat at the time called Sebastian Vettel. So I wonder if his counsel, and I should preface by saying I don't cast any bad dispersion on Mark Webber's character or anything like that whatsoever, because I don't know him and it's just me speculating. But would he be counselling Oscar to say, do not accept to be the second driver in this team? And if it is what happens, then let's get out of here and win you a Formula One world title somewhere else?
See, I 12 months ago would absolutely agree. But after the team orders were signed and everything like that, at like halfway through last season or quarter way into last season, when there was that explosion about to happen, then I think it's done and dusted. In terms of there was a clear 1-2 driver lineup. I don't know whether or not they're going to call it again or if it's a play on from last year. And that's where I wish I was a fly on the wall somewhere to know what had gone into it. because I know exactly what you're saying. And we spoke about this last year as well in terms of Webber and, having that no second driver clause. And McLaren didn't have it until they almost took each other out, which is when they preferred Lando. Lando qualified 15th, Oscar won the race. So I can't see it not being there, as in the driver 1-2, but it's going to depend on which weekend. It's going to be to whose weekend it is.
Remember as well that allegedly Lando and Oscar are on the same money.
It's yes.
So I don't know. It's again, we rumor about it. We speculate about what might have gone on. I've got to say, and this all happened outside of podcast land, but I was an enormous critic of Zach Brown when he first took over McLaren, and now I have to eat my words and humble pie because he has not only in 18 months turned that entire car around, but financially saved the team. Because I remember talking to you about it and giving him crap for the fact that every week he signed another sponsor and the car got slower and slower and slower.
I'll be eating that same pie because I agreed with it and had that same feeling towards it. And now, yes.
So, he's done a great job. So, look, hopefully he manages it, because it's been a long time since we've had competitive McLaren competitive with two drivers as well. And as we said last week in the podcast, it's great to see the classic teams back at the top.
McLaren's has always been one of my favorite teams.
Yeah.
So I do have to say something before we get into predictions. I have to ask you a question.
Of course.
What happens if Lawson out-qualifies Sonoda?
Well, if you believe the press, absolutely nothing. A bad bout of sushi on Saturday night so that Lawson doesn't start the race on Sunday. No, look, I don't know. I honestly, I hope that Yuki lives up to his own hype. Because
not even in the meaning of the driver itself, but when do we start looking at the car? Like, if that happens, when do we start looking at the car?
Once Daniel Ricciardo qualifies 20th in it.
Yeah, okay.
Once they get... So, again, all these kids that they've got going into the cars, and I say kids because I'm older than all of them, so I can.
You kids.
But all these kids they've got going into the car have all come through the Red Bull driver program. So they're all the same. Like, so they need to... When they put Alonso in the car and he says, you build this shitbox with all this stuff you've got, then I'll believe it.
Yeah.
Until then, I get that it doesn't suit everyone, but it's got to suit someone. You can't tell me that Ferrari didn't build their car around Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello did well in it.
Yeah.
Was he as quick as Michael in it? No, but he could drive it, and he did, as well as he could in it to support Michael in winning and team championship, all that stuff we've spoken about.
I guess thinking about it now, like Mercedes, Hamilton, Bottas.
100%. So, like, it's not that the car's undrivable. It could be, that the car is undrivable, but there has to be someone else out there who can drive it, and maybe Marco was onto it when he said that they might have to put Jos into the car to see. But if I really hope that Yuki qualifies well, because I'm sick and tired, even as a Red Bull fan, of talking about Red Bull. Yeah. I just want them to play the season so we can talk about some other stuff, because there's lots of good stuff happening in the season as well. And obviously we get to choose what we talk about, but this dominates it. So I hope he does well. My fear is that he won't, and that he will get out qualified by both of the Racing Bulls. And then, again, talk about not coming out and saying anything. And then Christian saying he's in the car till the end of the year and there's no more changes. They're just going to look stupid if they then make another change. They should have just done what we told them to do, which is to give Danny Rick a call. He was in the Red Bull paddock in Australia.
Yeah.
So, like, he's still friendly with the team. Just give him a call, give him $1 million to run for the rest of the season, and then it doesn't matter what happens, because nobody has any expectation, because he won't come out and say, I'm going to be in the top 3 in Japan.
No, absolutely not. But maybe they drop Yuki off at the gas station and pick him up next week and he starts again. It was really interesting to see as well, because everyone is,
is big on the anti-Max train, but he was quite supportive of Liam.
Yeah.
And so was Yoss as well, who I think is probably difficult to impress. It's just the opinion I gather of him from watching his activity in the paddock.
The general vibe he gives through the aura, he gives through the TV.
I mean, the only other thing that Red Bull really could do is to get, certain people to send certain pictures to certain other people to try and deflect some of the pressure that the drivers are facing at the moment. But
that would never have happened.
We don't want that either. So yeah, look, as I said, I'm just hoping that they do all right, and we can move on. I'm hoping Jack Doohan, if we move straight into Japan,
predictions.
I'm hoping that Jack Doohan finally does what I think that he can do, and to dispatch the croissant over the wall into the rain, so that we can stop hearing about him. Do I think it's going to happen? I'm not even sure. And again, I should have checked this out, but I'm not even sure if Jack has driven in Japan before. I'm pretty sure he has. Let me just quickly use the old Google to find this out. Jack Doohan driven Japan.
I think all of the rookies have driven.
I think
Japan.
so. I think so.
Just being the race, just being the track that it is, and it is such a well-known, well-driven track. I think they all have, but I could be wrong. Be crazy if there was this thing you could ask questions to give you
which is what I'm doing, and it's not really helping me here. Jack Doohan statistics. Let's have a look. Because I think that they all went there last year, and I really should have done this prep beforehand. So apologies to those of you millions that are listening to us look stuff up on Google. Very, very unprofessional. But yeah, he has. So he has raced in Japan. Where did he finish? No idea. And I'm not going to spend the rest of the time looking that up. But yeah, so he has done some time there as well. So, look, that's going to help him a little bit. I might be completely wrong about this. I'm just trying to read it. Anyway, doesn't matter. That's what I'm hoping happens.
Where we say that we get the facts kind of right.
Yeah, this is exactly right. And we're looking it up on the fly.
We can say anything we want.
At the end of the day, that's what lack of preparation will get for you. So let's go back into it. So surprise packet for the weekend. Neither of us have nailed this at all yet. So what are you thinking?
Fernando.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
What in what way is he going to be surprising?
Oh, he might finish the race. But no, I think Q3 top 6 finish.
Q3 is a good call. I think they've got the pace to get into Q3. It's obviously extraordinarily congested.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, good call. I'm gonna go with an Antonelli podium.
Oh, I like that one.
I think he's got it, and the car's obviously good enough that they can compete. So yeah, and
George Russell just keeps appearing, so
he does. Yeah, he just seems to turn up on race day and wander onto the podium. But I think I'm going to go with Kimi getting his first podium and being the first rookie to get a podium this year as well. So in terms of biggest mover,
I'm going to stick with the Hulk. He's got to pull through for me one week.
So the Hulk is going to make the biggest move. So out in Q1 and then dominating up the grid.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an interesting call.
Where are you sitting at?
I'm going to go with Esteban. Esteban not making Q3 at all and somehow magically getting into the 10.
Okay.
I think that he'll do something like that. It's the sort of silly weekend that would benefit him, particularly if it rains.
I was going to say, particularly if it rains, it's been surprisingly good in the rain.
A pole position. I mean, there's only really two choices here, I think. Oscar. Just for some variety, I'm going to introduce a third choice and just say Max. He's going to get pole position. And obviously race winner. You're going to go for the daily double?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to get double again. Oscar.
I'm going to go Max then, and
okay.
we're going to have Lando qualifying second and being 8th by the first turn. 8th by the time he gets under the bridge. But yeah,
they may not have fixed his brakes from last race. So
I'm also really excited to see, and I haven't heard or been able to find out in the bit of research I did do before the show, whether or not Carlos is going to get a new car for this event, because I read that he was in a Bitzer or has been in a Bitzer up until now in a 2024 spec upgraded car.
Repaired vehicle.
And if we want to go back and refresh our memories a little bit about who might have given some damage to that vehicle, it was one Sir Sergeant Smashalot, who destroyed cars like they were free. So if he's got any of the components from that little period in Williams' history, then there's no wonder he's struggling.
And not throwing the same amount of shade, but we do remember Colapinto also ended up in the Sergeant seat and crashed a few times as well.
I was going to say different driver. That was Colabinto.
Yeah, sorry, yes, sir.
Different driver. He's not the same guy that is the reserve driver, of course, at Alpine.
No, absolutely not.
So we've got the practice Friday, quali Saturday afternoon Australia time, and then the race I think kicks off 4 p.m. local time. So we will have another edition. We've been working through the show, and we've decided that rather than tie it into race weeks, it's just going to be a weekly or a bi-weekly podcast as our schedules fit in, just talking about everything to do with Formula One. So,
and obviously, if there is anything you guys want us to touch base on, or any input you'd like to give in that you want us to bring to the air, drop it in the comments, and we can definitely touch base with that.
Absolutely. So we will see you after, I think next Monday we've got scheduled to get another pod done and out. So Tuesday morning would generally be our release schedule if you're hanging on hearing our dulcet tones and words of wisdom.
Make sure you hit that notification button so you know it's generally about 6 a.m. that it drops, but you can wake up listening to our amazing voices.
Spotify and YouTube. YouTube's really where we want the growth. So if you're going to do anything, do subscribe on YouTube and help us out there. But as always, Reese, thank you for that amazing, entertaining intro. You know what? We might actually head out of the show on the intro.
Sounds good to me.
And you might even get the outro after that as well. But as always, I'm Stuart Brown.
I'm Reese Ashmore.
And thank you very much for joining the Top Step. We will see you in another week.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you this important message.
What is happening at Grand Prix Racing? What is happening at Grand Prix Racing? What is happening at Grand Prix Racing?
All right, it is brilliant. All right, we'll catch you next time.
Well, that's a checkered flag. We're at the end of the race. Thanks for tuning in. You kept up the pace. Reese and Stu are signing off today, but don't forget to like, subscribe. Drop your predictions down in the comments below.